Gentlemen, welcome to the Order of Man podcast. It's good to be with you today. My name is Ryan Mickler. I'm the host and the founder of the Order of Man podcast and movement. And we are a movement designed to help give you all the tools and resources as a man that you need to thrive in your business, your family, your community, and every facet of life in which you're operating. This podcast is specifically designed to give you information and resources and conversations from some incredible men, guys like Tim Tebow and Tim Kennedy and Terry Crews and Matthew McConaughey and Ben Shapiro and Andy Frisella and Grant Cardone and Jocko Willink, David Goggins. By now, you know some of the guys that we've had on, over 450 men that we've interviewed on this podcast now. So I hope that you're getting some value from those conversations and from what these guys have to offer. Today, I want to talk with you about the concept of allowing your future self to guide you. Now, I don't want to say that just because you're allowing yourself to guide your decision-making process, that's the only thing you need to be doing. We need to be enlisting the help of others. We need experts in our lives. We need coaches and mentors and friends along the path. We need to make those good decisions. But there's ways that we can make our own decisions, and we can do it with confidence, and we can make correct and accurate decisions that are going to fulfill and add meaning to our lives and the lives of the people that we care about. This isn't some woo-woo type nonsense, and I'm not going to get into weird stuff like that, but there are some key strategies that you can employ. And I'm going to share with you 4 specific strategies that you can use to allow your future self to guide you. Before I get into that, I just want to mention that I have a discount finally for you with Montana Knife Company. They're a friend for years now, 3, 4, almost years. And they're also the sponsors of this podcast. Montana Knife Company hunting season is right around the corner. So if you're looking for a good knife out in the field to break down your animal, to butcher your animal, all the way to their culinary set in the kitchen, look no further than montanaknifecompany.com. And when you go over there, use the code OOM10, OOM as an order of man. So OOM and the number 10, and you'll get your 10% discount on their knives. All right, guys, let's get into it. What I'm talking about today when I talk about the concept of allowing your future self to guide you is really a practice in consciousness. And we are the only species on the planet that can actually do this. A great example of this is waking up one day and deciding that you want to change your behavior simply because you want to. The rest of the animal kingdom can't do that. They make decisions on instinct. They're not even decisions really, but they make these decisions on instinct, on breeding, on genetics, and they do not have the ability to change simply because they want to. It's all reactionary to their environment. An example of this might be me hunting in Hawaii, hunting axis deer. If you've ever hunted axis deer, you know how challenging of a hunt it is. These animals are crazy, and for whatever reason, they go left when you want them to go right. They go right when you want them to go left. If they show up one day down there and you go there the very next day, they're going to show up somewhere else. They're not actively and consciously making the decision to avoid you as a hunter. They're picking up on subtle cues with their genetics, with their training and their conditioning, with things that are just instinctive in their DNA. And that's why they're able to stay alive. These deer are from India, and so they are genetically built to escape and evade tigers. And so they can pick up on subtle, small little movements. They're very twitchy. They're very fast. They're very turned on because they need to be able to avoid getting eaten. Okay, that's not consciousness. That's just instinct. Now, a lot of the way that we operate as men in our lives is instinctual. You might get into an argument with your significant other, for example, and not really know why whatever that person said is triggering or upsetting to you. Something happened in your past, and you're now equating that conversation or those words that she might be using with something that you experienced in the past. You're not actually making that decision. It's now hardwired into your brain to be on alert, to be triggered, to respond in a way that may not be favorable to you because you're trying to keep yourself safe. That is not an active decision-making process. But deciding that you're going to go to the gym today, you don't want to, you don't want to get out of bed, you're warm, your wife's there next to you, you're lazy, maybe you had a rough night and you don't want to get out of the gym or out of the bed to go to the gym, but you do anyways. And you do it because you know over the long haul, it's going to make you faster, bigger, stronger, more effective, give you more focus, more clarity, more energy. And so you're actively deciding that that's what you're going to do, even though every other part of your body is telling you that you don't want to go to the gym. Same thing with your financial situation. I'm going to decide to take a specific course so that I can be more valuable in the marketplace, so that I can make more money, so that I can put food on the table or create experiences for myself and other people. Those are active decisions. That's consciousness. Another beautiful way to look at this is that we have the ability as human beings to escape our own situation and look at the situation we find ourselves in objectively. So, for example, if you are in that argument with your spouse, instead of getting heated and reactionary, like I do, like we all do, you can pause and take a step back and evaluate it almost from a different position and look at how you're responding, look at how you're behaving, look at how you're reacting, and choose deliberately and intentionally to make different choices with regards to that conversation. This is consciousness. It is so powerful if we use it correctly. One question I'm often met with as I share my insight and hear from other guests is from men who are trying to make a decision about their future lives. So, for example, it might be they're in a job that they're not real satisfied with, but they make great money and they're able to stay close to home. And they get another job offer. And that second job offer is one where they may not make as much initially, and they may have to travel, but it's their dream job and they want to pursue it. And there's really a lot of room for growth in that new job, even though they'll take a cut now or have to travel and be away from their family for a period of time. So which one do you go with? That's a question I can't answer for somebody. I can't tell you that you should do A or B. I don't know you. It's not my place to tell you what's best for you. But the bit of advice that I've offered in the past, and this highlights and underscores the power of consciousness, is this is the question. If you were to fast forward in your life 20 years, looking back on the decision that you're making now and that 20-year time frame, which decision will you be happy that you went with? So again, fast forward 20 years, looking back on your life over 20 years, which decision will you be happy that you made? That is an exercise in consciousness. You're putting your mind and your soul in another position, 20 years older, different facet of your life, and you're looking at the problem or the dilemma or the choice that you have in this case from a different perspective. Even though it's still you, it's a different perspective. It's a different part of you that's looking back on it. And that's going to lead you to making, in this case, a better long-term decision instead of the temporary, here's how I feel about it. This is consciousness. Guys, there's one more point that I want to share with you before I get into the 4 bullet points, and that is this notion that we constantly hear that comparison is the thief of joy. Comparison is the thief of joy. It might be if you're comparing yourself and it's debilitating you. It's keeping you from progressing. It's keeping you from moving forward. It's deflating you. It's demoralizing you because of where you are. And the gap, the distance between where that individual is and where you are is so great that you can't see yourself navigating that gap. Okay. But there is an opportunity when you're looking at other people to recognize what is now possible, right? And the often example that we hear is the first man who ever broke the 4-minute mile. People said it wasn't possible. Well, he proved that it was. And within a very short window of time, 2 or 3 other individuals were able to hit that 4-minute mile because somebody unlocked that achievement. Somebody did it and showed that it was possible. And because other people knew it was possible, it made it easier for them to go ahead and do that. So when I'm looking at podcast guests, for example, or I'm looking at other podcasters or businesses that I admire, I'm not looking at them from a demoralized position. I'm looking at that individual and thinking, if that person can do what they're doing, then I can certainly change the way I'm doing things or invest or go more fully into something or pull back from another thing and create a similar result in my own life. This illustrates the concept of consciousness because now we're looking at somebody else or something else to show us what's possible. We're going to get out of our head. We're going to get out of the box that we've created. All the narratives go away and all the baggage and bullshit that we've held on to in our lives is dissipated because it doesn't exist in another person. That person doesn't have the same baggage that you do. Okay, that future self is going to have a different set of ideas than you currently do because you're in the middle of the mud and the muck and everything else that you're dealing with right now. We have to exercise consciousness if we're going to allow our future selves to guide us. So let's get to the 4 points that I wanted to share with you. Number one is we have to have some level of vision. How much time as men do you spend thinking about what do I want? What do I want my life to look like? What do I want to have accomplished? If I'm on my deathbed or I'm dead and somebody's giving me the eulogy over my body, what would I want them to say? What would I want other people to feel? How many people would I want to show up? What would they all think about me? What would my legacy be? When I'm in difficult and challenging circumstances, how does the man I want to be show up? What does he look like? What is he dressed as? What car does he drive? Where does he live? What does his house look like? What is his family dynamic? Guys, we have to spend time thinking about what we want. If you don't know what you want, which is most people, by the way, then we live lives based on what other people want. So think about your day. You get up at a certain time. Why do you get up at the time that you get up? Many of you, if you're being honest, say, well, that's the time I have to go to work. Right. Listen to that for a second. You get up at a certain time with just enough time to get ready so you can drive into work. And what does that signify? That means that somebody else, likely, whether it was a boss or a client, told you that you had to be at the office at that time. Now, that may align with your goals and visions, but for many of you, it doesn't. And you're not happy about it, but you're not casting any vision in your own life. And so you're left with dealing with your boss's vision of you and his workforce being there at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning to do the work that you're doing. That's somebody else's decision. Guys, it needs to be your decision. And I'm not saying that all of you should quit right now and you shouldn't do that, because sometimes going into the office at 9 a.m. to do our work aligns with our vision. So for example, if you really are satisfied with the work that you're doing, then the boss having you there at 8 o'clock in the morning aligns with the work you're excited to do. If you like it enough and you're making great income and that income's important to you because you have some stability within your paycheck and you get paid every 2 weeks and you get, your 2 weeks a year, and that happens to align with your vision, great. Who am I to say you shouldn't do that? What I am telling you, though, is if you don't have vision for yourself and you're just operating at a default mode instead of by design, your design, you're going to have a problem with consciousness. You're going to wake up, you're going to be tossed to and fro based on what other people desire and want from you, and your life is going to hold no meaning or purpose because you haven't given it any. So we need to spend a lot more time. And I would suggest doing this on a daily basis. And I'm not saying write out this life vision every single day, but what I would say is that every single day, you're going to think about, what am I going to accomplish today? What am I going to accomplish this week? What ultimate objective or goal is this leading me to? How is this helping me become the type of man that I want to become? And I spend about 5 to 10 minutes every single day visualizing my day, my week, my year, and my life, and how today, this moment plays into that. Number two, in addition to this, and I would say part of this, is you ought to have a journal somewhere. If you can take a journal out and you can start documenting what you want, what the person you want to be looks like, the car he drives, the relationship he has, the conversations he's having, the things he does for fun, the places he's went on vacation, the way he handles stress, the way he overcomes hardship, what kind of hardships he's dealing with, everything that you possibly can, and you're journaling on a daily basis, this is going to be a powerful exercise in getting ideas out of your brain and onto paper so that you can look at it more objectively. The data suggest that if you write down these types of things, they are more likely to come to fruition, whether it's vision casting, goal planning. Andrew Huberman did a great podcast last week, I believe, or maybe 2 weeks ago, on the science of goal setting. What was interesting is a lot of his work and what he talked about in that podcast aligned perfectly, almost identically with what we've created with our 12-week battle planning system. If you've listened to that podcast, you know it's strikingly similar to what we've created. The science and the data suggest that if you write stuff down, it's more likely to happen. So now you're going to write things down. How did your day go? What did you do well? What didn't go so well? What were the pain points and the frustrations and the problems that you dealt with? How did you overcome them? How did you handle yourself? If you got into an argument or a disagreement or an altercation with somebody, replay that. Did you do that exactly how you wanted to do it? Probably not. But now you have a chance to go back and look at it. So the next time you get into an argument with somebody, and we all will, we're going to handle ourselves better than hopefully we did before. But we have to look at it objectively. And a great method for doing that is to journal your thoughts, your ideas, your pains, your frustrations, your joys, your sorrows, your sadness, your hopes, your desires, your vision, and your goals. Write it all down on a daily basis. All right, guys, the next point is asking yourself what the future you would do. Okay, so if you're in a difficult or hard to make choice is presented to you, instead of just looking at it through the current lens of your reality, start asking, what would the future Ryan do? What would the future self do? What would I do if I was the man that I wanted to be? Or even differently posed, what would a man that I look up to do? What would my father do? If he's a man that you admire and appreciate and respect, what would he do? Would he do it differently than you? Now, I'm not saying you have to follow it to the T, but that might give you a perspective into how you can live your life differently. It's like the saying, what would Jesus do? Swap that out. What would Ryan do? And by the way, what would Jesus do is another great example of a man that you could follow and emulate. But outside of that, you can almost just say, what would Ryan do? What would the guy who I just cast vision about and has been spending a year writing about this kind of man that I want to become, what would that guy do? How would that guy handle this altercation? How would this guy manage demise of a relationship? How would that guy overcome losing a job? How would that guy deal with financial hardship? How would that guy deal in this circumstance? If he was making this choice, what choice would he make? And that's, again, going to allow you to see the decision-making process through a different lens that you can't currently see through your own reality. Remember the phrase, what would Steve do? What would Bill do? What would Joe do? What would Ryan do? What would this individual do? The last thing I'm going to share with you today, guys, so this is point number 4, is that we need to begin to manipulate our environment. Now, I know manipulate has a negative connotation, but I'm using that word deliberately and intentionally because in a way, we can create an environment that we don't totally 100% resonate with just yet, but we can elevate the environment around us to produce results that we desire. So a great example of that would be something simple like cleaning up your car. Okay, your car might be a mess. It might be clutter and chaos and confusion and trash everywhere. And you decide, I'm going to manipulate the environment by cleaning this up because I know if I have this clean, then I'm going to think more highly of my car. I'm going to think more highly of myself. I'm going to not be embarrassed to drive this around with other people. In fact, I might be proud to drive other people around, which could potentially create opportunities that didn't exist before. So, having your car cleaned is going to be good for you. Another example of that might be elevating your attire. Okay, if you're wearing cargo shorts and an oversized graphic t-shirt and Crocs and socks with an old sweaty hat from 20 years ago, that's going to say something to somebody else, but it's also saying something to you about yourself. You begin to believe that about yourself. I'm not worth investing in. I'm not a big deal. I'm kind of just ordinary and average. I don't need those fancy clothes because I'm not sophisticated. I'm a simple guy. Like all these things that we say that actually undermine our own performance. And I'm not saying you need to go out and buy a 3-piece suit or do, some of these like two-face suits that Jordan Peterson's wearing, because that would look silly, right? Like in a right context, maybe, but for you and I, that would look silly. But if we can groom ourselves, if we can get up and get ready and get changed and make ourselves presentable for the day and smell good and look good, if we can upgrade the material or the fit or the fabric of our clothing, and we can exude a level of confidence, we're going to gain confidence from that too. So I say manipulate because you're going to start to be the kind of man that you want to be. When you look at a man, you see what he's wearing. You're inspired and motivated by a person. You see what he's wearing. You're like, man, that guy looks sharp. You want to be like that guy. So be like that guy. Dress like him. Learn the vocabulary like him. Speak like him. Talk about the same conversations. I'm not saying become that person. That's weird. It doesn't work. But there's things that you can emulate. What's your office space say about you? What's your household say about you? What does your environment say about you? When you start documenting, vision casting, journaling, asking what you would do, the future you would do, then you can begin to manipulate your environment in a way that brings the gap between where you are and where you want to be closer through your actions. And the closer it gets, the more steam that you pick up and the more efficient it becomes, and the faster you're able to produce the results that you desire. Guys, we have a lot of power within ourselves. We don't often recognize or realize how powerful we are. And we should certainly look to outside examples, whether it's Jesus or Joe, your neighbor. We should look to outside examples to help us lead a good, moral, righteous, capable, fulfilling life. But don't overlook the importance and power of being able to manifest and create this for yourself. This is not some woo-woo type nonsense. This is stuff that actually works. Journal and do vision casting. Ask yourself what the future you would do. If you were to look back 20 years, what decisions will you be happy that you made? And then start manipulating your environment in a way that produces the kind of man that you want to become. My hope is that that serves you and that we can all go out there and implement this advice. We can all become better leaders in our homes, our businesses, our communities, and just better men in general. If this resonated with you, please share it. Make sure you check out my sponsors and friends over at Montana Knife Company. Use the code OOM10 for the discount. And then check out the Iron Council. We open up the Iron Council, our fraternity, our brotherhood of men. And we open that up on September 15th, orderaman.com/Iron Council. All right, guys, let's go out there, take action, and become the men we are meant to be.